Just a quick listener note. This show contains raw conversation about drugs, alcohol, childhood trauma, sexual assault, active addiction, and suicide. It also contains coarse language. Please use care when listening, and I hope you enjoy the episode. Welcome back to another episode of Recovery APN. Andy.
Danny boy, what's going on?
Not much.
Big episode today.
Yeah, awesome episode. We were joined by Lily. Such a unique story. And I give her all the credit in the world to be able to reach out to her mom, ask for support, and come to treatment at such a young age.
Like courage. I mean, not to be like corny or the talking point, but like to ask for help and to do what she did at her age. Like I can't even imagine at 20 looking to work on myself. I was just a knuckle. You know what I mean? Like I didn't know what was going on. So for her to come in and to do that, it's outstanding.
Yeah, and I hate to be this guy because I hated these guys early on in my recovery or when I was trying to get sober a few years ago. But to be lucky enough to get sober at such a young age,
yeah,
and be able to go through life with such a clear mind, understanding of who you are, being comfortable in your own skin,
what you want to accomplish,
and understanding what you want to accomplish, but also have like the ability to go down any path you choose, versus being have like a fogged brain and thinking that like this is drinking and using and social pleasing and climbing were the most important things in life. More power to her. I kind of like when she spoke about how Lana kind of tricked her a little bit, right? Hey, I'm coming in for trauma work, and our therapist and our clinical team has such a unique way to kind of help you see the whole picture. And her whole picture was that it was trauma, yes, and there was mental health, but there was also some substance use disorder that she needed to look at. And the fact that Lana was able to kind of crack her open early on and she was all on board with that after that. I liked it. Yeah, the experience that our therapists have, because I do believe that that's a common story people come in, because a lot of individuals don't want to admit that they have a drug addiction or addicted to alcohol, right? They want to use, I don't want to say the excuse of mental health, but like they think it's less intense. Yeah. So they come in saying, I have trauma, I need help. But instead of saying like, hey, hand up, I'm an alcoholic, hand up, I'm a drug addict. Or to say, hey, I don't know what I'm suffering. I just know the way I'm living right now, I don't know what's going on. I need help in all these areas. Yeah, and her willingness to say, okay. Yeah. Her willingness to say, okay, Lana, I trust you. Yep. Let's do the work. And to her credit, she stayed here. I think she mentioned 2.5 months. Yeah, which is incredible. It's another theme too. A lot of podcast participants they're not doing 30 days on. Some people do 30 days and they're happy and sober the rest of their life. And but a lot of our participants are doing 60 to 90 days, and it's outstanding. Yeah, absolutely. Well, without further ado, let's get into it, pal. Let's get into the episode. So we have a very, very fun podcast coming up. An OG. Yeah, I was about to say what's unique about it is the person we have, like our guest coming on, has been an APN alumni for, I guess, over 2 years now. Yeah, well over 2 years, yeah. So I'm kind of curious on what her experience was like at the lodge, like now that it's changed a little bit. Yeah. And also the tools that she learned, obviously, while hearing what she's doing, since she's left. Yeah, I'm definitely excited to hear Lily's story. So let's dive into it, Dan. Let's do it. Lily, welcome.
Thank you.
How does it feel?
It feels weird. I've never done a podcast before, but before I came, I was super excited to come. I was looking forward to it since Dabra told me to come in like November.
Yeah, I remember.
Shout out Dabra.
Yeah, are we allowed to see Dabra right now? Okay.
Are we allowed to name drop?
Yeah, I don't know. Keith said it's cool. Yeah, I remember when Dabra was here, she was talking about you, and she was like, and I guess you guys were chatting, and she was like, Lily wants to do this. So like Annie and I were just excited that eager you were listening to the podcast and you wanted to come on. So we're very excited that you're here.
Yeah, no, I'm excited too.
So I know that actually we both have personal relationships with Dabra and Kyle.
Yeah.
I guess my first question to you about them was, what was it like watching them on their episodes?
Yeah, so I also have a group chat with Kyle, with some of the people that we went to APN with, and he sent it in there. And it's like a podcast or not a group chat where we like talk every once in a while, but he sent it, and I remember watching it on the subway, and I just had the biggest fucking smile on my face, just I was like, oh my god, Kyle. And I was like, this is so cool. And because it was the first one, I didn't think that like other people could go on, but I just like, and I had been feeling a little bit stale like in my recovery at that point, so to hear Kyle and to like hear how he was doing, and like just his podcast was amazing. And like I remember texting like, oh my god, Kyle, like this was exactly what I needed. Like I was feeling so stale in my recovery, and it was just like amazing. And again, like I had the biggest fucking smile on my face. And then with Dabra, yeah, she sent me hers, and to also just hear hers, and to just hear like how she is now, it was just such a gift to have, you know, listen to two people who I'm close to but like don't talk to all the time. And yeah, I mean, it was just such a gift to hear both of them.
Yeah, so I guess, you know, to talk about some of the structure, we typically will kind of chat with the guests about kind of what brought them to APN. You know, was there any triggering moments? Were there things leading up, whatever it is? And then their experience at APN, whether it was the groups, an individual, a therapist, the community, some of our other experiences that we have here, and then what their life is like after they left APN. So I'm eager to jump into this.
I got a quick question. I always like to ask, especially somebody that hasn't been here since October or November of 2020, right? Like, what was the drive up the hill like coming up and seeing the lodge for the first time in over 2 years? What was the emotions? What was going on in your brain there?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of surreal to kind of just see it again. I obviously would never have thought that I would be back at this place, and to be back here in a positive way was just amazing. And I mean, also it's just in such a beautiful location that to like look over at the mountains was, yeah, I'm just very grateful to be here.
There you go. Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. What do you think, Danny?
Yeah, I just had
a little agita.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, so I guess dating back to, 2.5 years ago, what was the deciding factor for you to come to APN?
Yeah, so I have an older brother, and he went to APN in the summer of 2020, and my mom has always kind of offered for us to go to like rehab or like inpatient, just as we had a very traumatic and chaotic childhood growing up. She brought up a few times in like the summer of 2020. I was living alone in New York at the time in my mom's apartment, working at Target, and Donovan was here, and everyone else in my family was away because I guess like the COVID restrictions had just lifted, so we were allowed to like fly. So my family was like, we're getting out of here, but I had to stay for work. But basically she called me up a few times and was like, do you want to go? And I was like, you know, it would be nice to have a break from life, but I feel like no, other than that, like I would like a break from life. And then coincidentally, I started bottoming out like pretty hardcore around that time. And obviously, like before you come into recovery and like anything that has to do with this world, you don't really know what's happening, and it's like you don't know until you know. And I had been having a hard year like all of 2020, and like my suicidal ideation was getting a lot worse. I just been diagnosed with Crohn's disease, and basically one of the first things that my doctor said to me was that I'm not allowed to drink because, you know, it messes with your stomach. And I was still drinking and like smoking weed, and was basically just like by myself for an entire probably like 2 or 3 months. And just like my like desire to like live was like dwindling and like in the floor. And, you know, I tried to commit suicide like 4 different times. And after the 3rd time, I was like, oh, this might actually be an issue. Yeah. So I like called my mom up, and I said that I would like to go. And she actually said no the first time because she was like, from what you've said before, it seems like you don't actually want to go. You just want a break from life. So I had to, like really push it. And I think that was my first instance of ever asking for help. And it was really scary to get shut down the first time.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm just really grateful that something within me, I would call it higher power now, was just like, no, like I need to do this. And so Lori Water, I don't know if she still works here, but like,
Shout out, Lori.
yeah, I mean, she's amazing. Like she like truly saved my life. I talked to her. I went to a different rehab in Arizona for about 30 days. Wasn't really not working, but it just wasn't for me. And I like had continued to talk to Lori throughout my time there. And I was like, I want to go to APN. Like Donovan said such great things about it. And I would love to be in Colorado because I'm from Colorado and have always really loved the mountains and like found peace, the most peace that I can, like in the mountains. And so I eventually was transported here and yeah.
I think what's interesting about that is how you, in the beginning you said how you wanted to go other than just like a vacation, and then how like the stars align. And it's like either we surrender or something surrenders us, right? In life, like it almost knew. It's like, hey, Lil, we gotta get somewhere. And it's sometimes that process takes years or never happens. And for you, it probably happened in 2 months or in a couple of weeks. So that's what kind of resonates with me from your quick little introduction there.
Yeah,
the surrender process.
Yeah.
I'm curious to know, when you had to call your mom and ask for help, did she know how bad that you were suffering, whether it was with like the suicide attempts or the smoking of the weed or drinking?
No. So to this day, like my mom doesn't know that I tried to like kill myself.
Well, until now.
Well, no, she's not watching the podcast. She asked me, and I was like, nah. And she was like, okay, so respecting that boundary. But no, so I like had a very traumatic childhood growing up. Was assaulted like at 17. And then I went to UVA for like a year and a half. Was not doing well there. Came home winter of 2020. So she knew that I was in a bad place. And Donovan like had said like a few times that like he thought that I should go there. So I think she always knew that like there was something off. And I don't think, again, it's like the thing where it's like you don't know until you know. But I think it was the first time that I ever admitted it or acknowledged it to myself. And I think that was really fundamental because I had historically always been like, I'm fine. Sure. Every time she asked me how I was doing. So I just she eventually not like gave up, but just backed off and let me do my thing.
Yeah. I guess I don't want to jump into it now, but no, it's interesting. I think that like, it's very hard to be honest about those things early on. So I could definitely relate to that, and definitely like, and I'm sure we'll see if you've worked your way to courage to talk about it more with your mom. But I guess jumping into your experience at APN, I guess walk us through those first couple of days and then the weeks. And I know you said you were here for 2.5 months.
Yeah, somewhere around there. So I remember Brandy took me and I started talking with her just about like spiritual things, and
that's Brandy.
That's Brandy.
Shout out Brandy.
So it was interesting to like talk to her about that because I'd never really talked to anyone about it before. I was raised like super Catholic, went to Catholic school, middle school, like childhood, high school, whatever. So and then I went into the wing, like the assessment wing. Thank you. And my first thought was like, oh my God, this is so nice. And I slept probably like 15 hours my first night there. I remember I was supposed to be woken up for assessment and they just let me sleep because I was so tired. But honestly, like it was just great to like walk in and like go outside and see this like insanely beautiful place and have like a really nice bed. And to just like feel really comfortable and safe, especially coming from like that other rehab where I just kind of had felt really on edge. And I felt like when I walked in that room, it was kind of the first time where I was like, okay. So that was really nice. And then I remember doing my assessment and them asking me questions, and I had the thought like, oh, like I'm really in this now. And as for like the actual lodge, I honestly don't remember the first few days. Oh, okay. Actually, I had done the like Zoom session for my first the group therapy with Alana, and I actually fell asleep during someone's like trauma egg, which wasn't great. But I remember going to my first group after that and being like, oh, like this is what I like sort of remember, and it was kind of just surreal to, you know, just be with a group of people that I'd never met before and be expected to like talk about things that were so like vulnerable and that I'd never talked about before. Honestly, like one of the first, like the main thoughts that I remember was just that like it was really nice, and I was just felt amazing and really grateful to be in Colorado and like the mountains of Colorado and to just wake up with that view every single day. But I'm trying to think. I don't really remember my first few days, other than I think I also tried to make it a point to not hide in my room and hang out in like the lobby and areas similar to that, to start to get to know people and
Force
make
yourself
friends.
to connect a little.
Yeah, because I had done the same thing at my Arizona rehab, and it definitely made the experience a lot better. And so I was like, I want to do the same thing here.
I want to hear about something too. So we interviewed a couple people now, season 1, season 2, and the one theme that comes up a lot is how people feel instantly comfortable and safe here.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's so powerful. Right. And yes, it is a beautiful. The lodge is gorgeous and the views. But is there anything like in particular? Are you like, do you want to see the media room, or do you want to see a view from a certain spot where you felt like? Is there certain aspects from the lodge like that you're excited to now 2.5 years later to see? I'm kind of curious about that.
Yeah. So I don't know what it's called. You know, like the overlook.
Like up top, like up top. Yeah.
So Laura, when she gave me the tour, took me up there, and I was like, oh my God, wow, like this view is amazing. So I would definitely want to see that again. Dabra and I and a few other people who were there at the time, we walked like all the way out to the edge. I don't know if that was allowed, but we did that, and to just see like the mountains and the valley also. And it was covered in snow, and we saw some I don't know what they're called. They're not mooses.
Elk.
No, they're not.
Deer.
They're not deer. They're something else.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But whatever. But to like see that was just amazing.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think it's so interesting that the building holds so much. It's like it's almost sacred for people when they come back, and I think it's powerful. And it's not like you're the first. Like we said, we interview a lot of people, and that's a theme that comes up. So that's pretty cool to hear that.
Yeah.
Let's jump into like the middle part. You start talking about the beginning of your process. Talk to us about your relationship with your therapist and caseload, and what that, the other women in your caseload, and then the individual relationship with your therapist, and what that looked like.
Yeah. So when I came, it was super early, and there was only 2 female therapists, and there was one I think that was more like addiction based, and one that was more trauma based. When I came, I mostly. So I thought came for trauma.
Mm-hmm. Lana tricked you.
Yeah, yeah. So I was assigned to Lana, and I was super scared of her at first, and in the sense where I was just like, I know I'm going to do some hardcore work, but I mean, she changed my life, and I am so incredibly grateful for her to this day. But yeah, so we had assignments, which I also really enjoyed, because one of the first things that I was told is that I was basically like a frozen block of ice. And my mom also used to say that to me also, actually. So the assignments really helped me kind of start to break down some of like the layers of trauma and just feelings in general, because I'd never really felt my feelings before. So the first assignment was like who you were, who you are, and what you want to be. And I remember that my whole assignment was probably like 5 minutes long, because I just didn't remember anything and was so disconnected from like who I was as a person, and who like I was then, and who I like was as a child. that I just didn't really know what to say. And after hearing some other people's, they spent like the entire session doing it, sometimes 2 sessions. And I remember thinking like, oh my God, like I am just so disconnected from myself. And it was interesting actually. So I, in preparation, was reading through like my journal from here, and my who I wanted to be was like empathetic, able to like feel my emotions, able to like have relationships, and like be there for people, and just like be more comfortable with myself, like super simple things, which like now I'm able to do so easily, but like back then just seemed impossible.
How cool is that though?
Yeah, but like now they come like so easily without me having to think about it. Like I check in with people every day and ask them how they're doing, or there's, I don't know if it's like this in LA or wherever, but you're supposed to call 3 people a day in AA. I don't do that, but like I do make the habit of like checking in on people every single day. So to be there and show up for them, and then also like show up for myself, and to be able to express emotions so easily. Like I cried out all the time, especially at the subway. I don't know what it is about the subway, but
it's like once you turn it on, and it's
and like I probably for the first month was not able to cry, and I think the first time I cried was like during my trauma egg, which is one of the last assignments that you do. So yes,
and isn't that it's funny that the first time you heard a trauma egg, you slept. Right, and then
Yeah.
you understood how sacred that assignment
Yeah.
is, and how real deal it is,
Yeah.
and like how it made an impact on you later down the road.
Yeah. But in terms of like my relationship with Lana, again, like she was so great, and she just made all these connections that like I had never heard before. And I mean, we did EMDR in like our individual sessions, but I don't know, it's kind of hard to describe, but something about her and like the way that she does therapy just made me feel so held. And I guess it was the feeling that I feel like I was finally being taken care of, and that like I'm gonna actually start to work through these things. And I've been in therapy since I was 9, never really made any impact, at least to my knowledge. But Lana, I think, was the first time that I felt as if I was working through things. Yeah. What was your other question?
I don't know if I asked it. I was just listening.
but like before,
No,
there was several things you listed, and
But no, I find it very interesting, and I went to APN as well, and I remember doing that assignment. I'm not as organized, so I don't like have my notes from when I was a client here. But I was thinking before you even said that, like you like went back and read it, I was like, I remember doing that assignment. I wonder what mine said.
Yeah.
And I was like, I definitely don't have it. But I remember doing that assignment, and it's interesting because it's the first part of it is who you were, and you're just like completely like shitting on yourself.
Yeah.
Because like you're in rehab at this point, and you're just like,
you weren't killing
I was a
it.
selfish prick, like
Dishonest.
I was a drug addict, I was dishonest, and all this stuff. And then you got to the last part, it's like who you want to be. And God knows what I wrote. I think probably like honest, right? But it's interesting, and you said it too. It's like you get to a point in life after you go through these steps and do all this work that the things that you want to become so natural to you.
Yeah.
And they become second nature, where you don't have to think about checking in on someone or being transparent or, just, feeling your emotions. It's like
Natural.
Hey, what's Andy? How you doing? Oh wow, I didn't realize I was checking on him. Or like when you ask me a question, I'm just like, this is how I'm feeling.
Yeah.
So it's interesting how like automatic they become once you put in work.
Yeah.
And it's incredible that you had that relationship with Lana. I think a part of me wants to say that maybe, and I'm no therapist here, but maybe you weren't ready at that young age or until you met Lana to feel comfortable and like be honest, right? And maybe I think Lana just had that effect on you where it's like, hey, like whatever you say, no judgment. Like I'm here to work with you and I'll be here. And like you said, like felt held, and I liked how you talked about that.
Yeah. And the groups also were amazing. It was, so I only had like individual therapy once a week, but we had group almost every single day. And I feel like that's where a lot of the work also got done, where we would present assignments in group, and we would either present our own assignment or hear about someone else's and give feedback. So to just like be in connection with someone like that and to hear their stuff and then have them hear my stuff, and to just know that, first of all, that's not going anywhere. Second of all, that like for the first, like this was genuinely the first time in my life that I had people like listen to me and like see me for who I was and validate it. Where, yeah, I mean, the group of women that I was with was incredible. I still am in contact with a lot of them. I have a group chat with some of them called Boomers. Just they're all older. They're all older. Yeah, and like it really made my experience to kind of just have a group of women who were so vulnerable with each other and also who wanted to do the work. Because you know there are people here who don't always want to, and I don't know. I feel like I was really like privileged to have a group that like almost all of them were there to like want to get better and like work through whatever they were there for. Also, I really enjoyed all of the other groups that we had, like DBT. Yeah. Love DBT. My friends, I'm known as a DBT stan among my friends I like now. Yeah, so I still have my workbook actually, and sometimes reference it or, you know, like give it to some of my other friends if they ever
need it. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. But like that was amazing. Oh, I really enjoyed the art therapy too. Not much of an artist, but to kind of just, you know, have fun and like do like random pieces of art was really enjoyable. Yeah, and I just felt like there was always something to do, whether it was, you know, like go outside and like go on a hike on the weekend or like in the morning. I mean, I never woke up for the morning hikes, but like do that or like work out or like go to a yoga class, go swimming.
You know what I think is important that you said that I want to touch on, especially if we have listeners, right? The idea is that some of the clients in the lodge would listen to this, but the idea of, hey, group therapy versus individual therapy, because I think most people come in and say, hey, I want an individual session every day. A group and the group dynamic's so powerful, but people are always very apprehensive about the group dynamic and how so much work can be done, and then what happens in group can then be brought to individual too, that once a week, and there's so much growth in the group modality kind of deal. I don't know if that's the right usage of that word, but I got to throw it in there, Dan, and shout out me. And no, but can you talk about it? Because people listening, hey, I want 5 individuals a week. Like how that made a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, I also came in with that impression, not that I wanted it, but that I thought that that's what it was going to be. Looking back now, I'm like, oh, these people actually have lives. So I was definitely a little bit apprehensive, and again, like this is coming from someone who had never been vulnerable with another individual in their life. And it definitely took me a little bit to open up, but by the end of it, like, I, you know, was like trying to like lead sessions and just made sure that like everyone was engaged. And it was something that I almost always looked forward to as well.
That's great.
No, that's a very interesting point. Because I think majority of people, and I'll say the majority, I'll step on that ledge and say they come and request that, like, I need how many one-on-one sessions do you have? Like we get, I think it's 2 now. Well, I need 4.
Yeah. That's where all the work is.
I think it's like, I think it's ego. No one's like, everyone, like no one's like, I'm the best here, I need all the attention, but more so fear.
I think it's more fear than anything.
It's like they are like embarrassed of what they went through. They don't want to share in public. They don't want other people to know what they've gone through. And I, you know, in my experience, and for me, I think I went to Dustin when I got here and I was like, dude, like I need
this many individuals.
And he was like, no, you don't. And I was like, okay. But you turned, and like the process group to me, and it seems like you mentioned it too, how important it is, because like not only do you learn from your therapist here, but you learn from
great
other
feedback to
people's
peers.
other peer stories, right? Like whether or not you've experienced in your life, you may experience it in the future, or you may learn from their experiences,
1000%.
and like and it overall makes you a better person. So I think like you mentioning that is so important.
Yeah, I mean, I love Lana, and like we did great work individually, but I would say that I got more work done in group and feel like it benefited me more than individual therapy, for sure.
That's great.
Yeah, I have a question. So, and I don't want to, if it's okay, like talk about your age. You know, you came to APN at a younger age. What was that experience like?
Yeah, so I had just turned 20 in the summer of 2020, and like freshly 20, freshly like life. So I had to take off a semester of college, and I was really debating on whether or not I should. But it kind of came to the fact that if I had gone through with going to college, I don't think I would have survived that semester. So it was definitely scary to kind of like interrupt my life. There are people who like take a gap year after high school before college, and I never, not that I had the option to do, but I always thought it was stupid because I was like, I want to stay on track with everyone my age. To make that decision and to decide to like go off track was definitely really scary, and it's something that I get a lot, like, oh my god, you're so young. And but I don't know, I think for me there are definitely times, especially with drinking, I think just in terms of like AA, where there are thoughts that I have where I'm like, I wish that I could have like drank longer, or didn't get sober so young. But I also know, especially hearing from like people who got sober older, that they always say that they wish they had done this younger.
Yeah.
And I think it's cool to kind of have the rest of my life ahead of me. And this is something that I like talk about all the time, but just be like present and awake for my life now. Where, thinking about it now, I can't imagine, being like a zombie or like whatever you want to call it for longer than I had, where, now I'm so used to like being present and like aware of my surroundings and what's going on around me, that to think that I was just basically asleep at the wheel for like 20 years is insane.
Well, yeah, I mean, like if you talk to people, like the 50-year-old guy says to the 40-year-old, I wish I did it when I was 40, and the same thing to 30, right? I wish I got it.
Yeah.
And the fact that you're able to do that isn't like, it goes against like, hey, society says I should be in college, I should go for 4 years and get a job, and and then married with the 2.5 kids and the white picket fence, and right, like that's all the bullshit that it's just like we take on, right? And for you to kind of have the courage to step out of that, right, and do your own thing and then work on yourself, I think more power to you. Like I think that's great.
Yeah.
I used to hate when I was trying to get sober early on. I used to hate
Here comes the riot.
when people would be like,
Preach.
"Oh, like you're so lucky that you're trying to get sober now." I used to be like, "Dude, like shut the fuck up, man."
I'll get sober when I want to get sober.
No, but more importantly, it's like I think my first time getting sober was like 29 or 30, and I was like, I have so much more life to live. Like, how am I not going to go to this club? How am I not going to this bachelor party? And you're telling me like I'm lucky, like I have to do this sober. And then fast forward, and I meet, whether it's here or whether people like I meet like in my, like what I do in LA, it's like the first thing I say, I was like, dude, I know you're going to take this the wrong way, but I am so jealous that you've gotten sober this early on. You have no idea how much life you have ahead of you. And to your exact point, like that you get to be present and like not like sleep through things. And like half the things I've done, like I don't remember. It's like I studying abroad or like going to like sporting events or going on vacation or doing this, like, yes, I remember like physically being there, but like I don't remember any of those emotions. And like to do that sober and to do that, more importantly, like present, and like be part of whatever you're doing is so lucky for these individuals.
Dan, you know what they say? We live life forwards, we understand it backwards, right? Like again, shout out me. There's that line, right? But like, it's so true. Like, I wish I knew that. You know, like when I was 25, I wish I cared more about spirituality and my own mental health and my own, you know, trying to be good in relationships. But I didn't care. You know what I mean? Like, it takes something that, you know, Lily kind of described. She had something when she was the summer of 2020 that kind of opened her eyes and, hey, I need to do something, right? And that was, you know, spirituality entering at that point in time. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah, I wouldn't, on the record,
I would.
I wouldn't trade my life into it. Like, everything happened for a reason, and I'm like okay with it. But if I could preach to the younger generations, that's what
open
I'd
your
say.
eyes.
Yeah. I mean, I have a 16, I think 17-year-old now, sponsee, and to see her like getting sober is amazing. And I'm also friends with a 17-year-old. She has over a year, which is crazy.
That's awesome.
Yeah, to like to see people that young and to also like have to go through high school sober is something that I'm honestly grateful that I didn't have to do. But it's amazing to see, you know, people just surrender so early and to also just have the willingness to do it at such a young age. Like, I mean, I was a jackass when I was 16. So
there's a lot of people that don't find rehab or 12-step fellowship, and they're just living a miserable. Like, that's tough.
Yeah, or they don't realize how
sick they are.
How sick they are, how miserable they are. They're going through this life as, and I know like maybe like this is a norm, right? I'm supposed to do this at 17. I'm supposed to do this at 18. College is supposed to be just a full-on party. Like, no, it's not. Like, a lot of people think it is, and like that's what norm says it is, but like it's kind of normal to just like be present in college too.
And study.
Get a degree.
Yeah, I mean, for me, what was so incredible was just that, you know, like sobriety and like recovery gives me the ability to be present, and just the fact that, like what you were saying before, that I had like all these expectations for myself that I was supposed to, you know, get a degree and like get straight A's and like all these things and like have my life figured out by the time I was like 23 or whatever. And, you know, I'm still in college now, like I'm still getting my degree, and a lot of people that I started school with graduated last year, and it was difficult to like see them go on with their lives. But I also know that honestly, like, I don't think I would be here, nor would I been able to survive college if I hadn't taken that break. And I talked to people, like some people in like the rooms about that when, because I've met a few people who are like debating taking a semester off when they're like freshly getting sober. And I just like say that it was the best thing to ever happen to me.
That's great.
So now that you've left APN and you're kind of like kind of figuring yourself out since you discharged, how has the relationship been with like friends and family?
Yeah. So I basically dropped off the face of the earth. When I went to rehab, I was like sort of in contact with high school friends because I was living in New York, and I went to 2 years of high school in New York. Cut everyone off from UVA when I left there because I was like, fuck this place. Like the UVA is the issue. Yeah. I'm not the issue.
They're the problem.
They're the problem. Yeah. So I hadn't been in contact with anyone from there for, you know, like a little bit, and had some friends from high school who I talked to on a daily basis, but I basically dropped off the face of the earth with them for like 2.5 years, and I made amends to them over the summer, and all they said was, we were so worried about you, and like we didn't know what had happened to you. So to have some of those relationships come back has been such a gift. And in terms of like my friends, I kind of started over with my friends in the rooms where I was like, oh my God, sober people my age, this is so great. And made friends like really quickly. And unfortunately, like as you know, I've grown and changed, some of those relationships have had to fall away for whatever reason. But I, you know, still have really good friends my age, and I've also started becoming friends with like people who are older and like in their 30s. But yeah, I mean, they're my like part of my support system, and I talk to them almost every day. And you know, to bring it back to group, to just have people who fundamentally understand how I feel is just so amazing. And that was what I got in group as well. Like that validation was huge for me. And I get that with my friends now. And yeah, I mean, like my best friend, I met one of my first meetings in sobriety. She lives in Chicago now, but to just like be able to maintain relationships also. I was never able to maintain a relationship. I always broke up with people and thought that they were the issue. And to actually like want that goal now to like grow and develop these relationships has been amazing. And as for family, I mean, it has always, you know, it's been an ongoing thing as it is with family. But I mean, I would say that my relationship with my mom has gotten a lot better. I am able to be open with her and actually talk about my feelings. And I don't know, it's actually something I'm working through in therapy now, where I do kind of still feel blocked with stuff with my family. But I'm assuming that, you know, with time and therapy and whatever, that it will get better. And I think, you know, it makes sense. Like, I've just been trying to be gentle with myself about it, where, you know, I come from like a long line of trauma and grew up with trauma. So to still be impacted by it is something obviously that's going to happen, and to, you know, be accepting and like gentle with myself about it. But, you know, they're better than they were. And, you know, I can say that I do genuinely care about how my brothers are doing now, which is not something I cared about before. I have a younger brother, and I didn't give a shit about him. Like, I was so mean to him. And now I talk to him every once in a while, and I like care about how he's doing and like what's going on in his life. Yeah.
I appreciate the honesty. Keith has a question.
Keith has a question.
Thanks for letting me on, guys. When you went back to school and you started talking to these people, maybe some were sober, some weren't.
Yeah.
How do you explain some of what you experienced? Like, how do you explain a trauma egg to them? How do you explain DBT? Like, you said you're a DBT stan. So, like, do they ask you questions like that? And how would you explain it? Because we've definitely talked about it on other seasons, but I don't know that we've ever explained either of those modalities.
Yeah.
Here we go, Andy.
Shout out.
Here we go. So again, like I would say 95% of my friends are sober. So, and some of them work in sober living, so they, you know, like know what DBT is. But for those like who don't know, like it's dialectical behavioral therapy, and it kind of just helps with emotional regulation and how to communicate properly, which is not something I knew how to do, and obviously like still working on. But yeah, in terms of like what I like talk about with my friends of going to APN and what that was like, some of my friends say that they wish they had gone to rehab, which, you know, I love it. Like, I loved going here, and it was so nice and so beautiful. So I'm like, yeah, like it was such a privilege to be able to go.
Yeah, rehab was chill.
Rehab was just chill. But I just kind of explained that the work that I did was like super useful and definitely jump started my recovery. And I remember Lana saying that to me, where she was like, you know, this is not going to be the end of your recovery, but the beginning, and it's going to be an ongoing process.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes.
And this is something that I've experienced in my early recovery, and like I had to learn through, and I'm kind of curious on like what your process was. But when you leave treatment and, you know, you've decided to embark on sobriety and, you know, you're all in, you're still going to come across like the social norms of others that on Friday night they're going to go to dinner and drink, or they're going to go to a bar. And when you want, and some of those are your friends that you want to hang out with, not because they're drinking, because you generally like them. Yeah. And then you're going to go and show up because you don't want to sit at home. How has that been for you to reemerge in society without drinking and having to ask when people are having to ask questions about it to you?
Yeah. So I mean, I just say that I have Crohn's if I'm being honest, because it doesn't ask. There's no more further questions, because I have had experiences where I have said that I'm sober, and someone would be like, "Why?" or like. Yeah. Just do it in moderation, or like, you know, you just like smoked one, or like whatever.
You're only 21.
You're only 21. Yeah. So I just straight out say it, like, I have Crohn's, I can't. But yeah, in terms of like the social stuff, it's definitely been difficult. I was actually just talking to a fellow about it like 2 days ago, where I just don't enjoy a lot of the things that like people my age do now, where we were talking about it, like I go to this meeting midnight, and it's right next to a bar, and like you'll have like the alcoholics like sitting talking outside, and you'll have like everyone lining up for a bar, and it's all people my age, and I just like don't have any envy for them anymore, which is kind of cool. And I think that's why like it's been so fundamental for me to have friends in recovery, because they understand that and they're like, yeah, same. But it's hard. I mean, because I do, you know, have some friends who like still drink, or like even coworkers, like where I just have to be aware of that, like my thinking and like my journey is very different than theirs. And one of the things that I try to fall back on is just the fact that it like there's nothing wrong with me, or there's nothing wrong with them, that we're just, you know, like they're able to do it, and that's great, and like
That's their
I'm
path.
not I'm not able to, and like that's okay. And obviously like I still have days where I'm like, I wish I could drink, or like I wish I could use like they do, but I can't. And I don't know, I would just say that having friends in like recovery has been so amazing and fundamental, because it just makes me feel so much less alone.
Well, Dan says this term a lot, but it's 100% true. It's like-minded people with like-minded goals, right? You know,
Yeah.
like, and you attract what you put out, right?
Yeah.
So like when you leave rehab, you still got your buddies, but you're trying to like live sober and live different, and then all of a sudden, like what you're looking for changes.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I had so much of that where when I got sober, I like joined a few like young people AA groups.
YPG.
YPA. YPA. And I was like, oh my God, sober people my age. And, you know, you attract what you put out. And I attracted some people who are like no longer in my life. Because, you know, like I don't know. I do believe that like even though APN gave me like a jump start, like I still had a long way to go and like a long recovery. And I don't know, I just attracted some people that are no longer in my life, because like I've grown and changed and like want different things, and also like respect myself a lot more. Where, you know, it's interesting where I kind of talked about it with Alana a little bit, but I am now like working through a lot of my relationship stuff, where like I got sober in AA, dealt with like the drugs and alcohol, still deal with it, but now I'm kind of looking at like how I present as a person and what I attract, and like how I show up in relationships, where like I've joined another 12-step fellowship to start to do that. And yeah, I don't know where that was going, but
No,
Yeah.
it's perfect.
it's crazy. And to people to put like a blind eye towards that, like how difficult it is to rejoin society
Yeah.
in that young age, where like you have all the norms of going out and like social drinking,
Yeah.
and whether it be a sporting event, concert, dinners, brunches, you know, everything in the norm now is associated with like a glass of wine, a glass of champagne, a beer,
A Bloody Mary.
or now with like, you know,
I got a funny one with dating apps. Like,
Yeah.
what are we going to do if you say you don't drink on your profile? And I'm like, well, I guess we're
Yeah.
not hanging out. You know, like,
so it's interesting. And I think
Yeah.
that like I went through this a little bit. I'm curious, like when you go out on dates, right? Like you make up in your mind the craziest stories about like if you tell someone that you don't drink and why, like they're gonna rebuttal and be like, "You're the worst person in
Yeah.
the world. Like how did
Yeah.
you become a drug addict? How did you become an alcoholic?" And I think it took practice. And
Yeah.
like I think for the record, like I won't tell you what to do. Like the Crohn's thing seems to work, and like good for you. Like I think some people like, you know, honesty too, right? Like and like I don't drink because like I can't do it.
Yeah.
I'll steal your wallet.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
like-
Like my first sponsor was like, it just doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like the funniest thing for me was that like I used to like always like before a date or something would like come up with like the craziest lies
Yeah.
ever. And I'm like, I'm just feeding into my addiction here.
Yep.
And just
1,000%.
saying like lie after lie. I'm like, hey, like, you know what? Let's just see how this goes. Let's just
Yeah.
like, and I was just like, yeah, I don't drink. And then she was like, oh, like why? And I was just like, yeah, like I just can't. And I was
Yeah.
like, it's too much for me. And she was not judging. She was just like
Curious.
so intrigued
Yeah.
with this
Yeah.
stuff. And then it made me want to open up, and like the date went nowhere. But I was like, oh wow, there are people out there that actually like are genuine and not judgmental.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, like whoever appreciates me for me, that'll be a sign for me.
The other thing is we all think people drink and use drugs the way I drink. But a lot of times, most of the time, people don't drink and drug.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
oh, I'm starting to feel it. I say, oh, I want more. They put the glass of wine
Yeah,
away,
it's
right?
so weird to me. I never
Yeah.
understood it.
Yeah. So that's what we forget
No,
too.
but it's I do think that like especially in the younger generation that people struggle with getting sober for that simple fact. Like
Yeah.
how is society going to judge me? They're not thinking about like how am I going to stay alive? Like how am I going to be healthy? There's like how am I going to be judged?
Yeah.
And I think it's like no, it should be like out there that like hey, like it's okay to be sober.
There's other ways to go about
there's
this thing.
Yeah.
there are other ways to have fun and remember what you did.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
remember the food you eat.
I remember my younger brother was going to college, and I was like, all right, Jake, like, he joined a frat, and I was like, okay, so don't drink until you black out. And he was like, what are you talking about? And I was like, well, for me, drinking is like you're supposed to black out, and I drink to black out. He was like, that doesn't make any sense. And I was like, oh.
Different,
Oh,
different
yeah.
objection.
Yeah. So it is interesting to like talk to him and like hear his experiences with it because we're just so fundamentally different on that way. And sometimes I do get jealous because like he's able to fit in a lot easier than I do. But I think especially this past like year, I've been able to kind of have people around me who, like love me for who I am and like see me. And I just have a lot of people in my life who, support me and like respect me and all that I don't feel weird being myself anymore. Yeah. Obviously we still all have moments, but like just, we're addicts and we like love to like be mean to ourselves. But yeah, to just have people who don't make me feel crazy anymore has been amazing.
Yeah.
So I guess before we wrap up, I just had a follow-up question. In today's like day and age, a lot of like social norms have been surrounded by like social media. So whether it be like Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, whatever else is out there.
Snapchat.
Snapchat.
Snapchat isn't cool anymore, Andy.
Sorry.
Yeah. And so I'm kind of curious on how it's been for you to have that like in your face 24/7 and how it is to like not be able to have like FOMO over like seeing your friends partying on their Instagram stories or
Yeah.
whatever it is.
Yeah, so I actually currently don't have Instagram or TikTok or Snapchat.
What about Twitter?
I have Twitter,
Me
but like
too.
my Twitter is just all memes and like stupid shit.
I get information from Twitter.
I mean, sometimes it is, but then I'm like, no. But yeah, I mean, so when I first, like came out of recovery, I was big on Instagram and like big on like social media, and it was really hard. 'Cause yeah, like the constant comparing and like also just seeing what people are doing constantly, like is so hard. So that was really hard to see that. And I think, the more that I've grown and like the longer that like I've been in my recovery, I value my peace and serenity a lot more. And I don't think I did when I first got sober. When you first got sober, you're like, yeah, chaos. Just it's all you're comfortable with and it's all you know. And now I'm just at a point where going on like Instagram like makes me really anxious because I do just so quickly fall into that trap of like, this is what someone else is doing. I'm not doing it. Why wasn't I invited? It's a huge one. And I just like that cycle or that spiral in my head can go really, really quickly. And I am in SLAW, which is another 12-step program that I'm really using to like work on my relationships and like my codependency and all that. And I'm in this period of withdrawal right now where I have to solely focus on myself. Like I'm not allowed, but like I'm not dating. I'm not like entertaining anyone or like, and I don't go on social media because there are just so many like triggers or like activations where I can just really start to be really mean to myself. And a lot of like what my SLAW sponsor and I work on is like being really gentle and like kind with myself. And to like bring it back to APN, that's actually something that like one of my first sessions with Lana was about, where she like handed me like Pia Medley's book, like Facing Codependency, Facing Love Addiction. And she also like told me that I have substance abuse issues. And I was like, all of these 3 things happened at once. And I was like, Lana, I'm here for trauma. Why are you telling me this? I was like, fuck you. I didn't actually say that. But yeah, so to kind of just like go back to what she told me, and I had a moment probably like 6 months ago where I was like, oh, Lana was right. Like, and I was like, she is so smart. Because yeah, like especially with trauma, and that's like a lot of like what SLAW focuses on is just like how we were brought up and like what our environments were like influenced us today, and like what our relationships are like. Yeah. Because even in sobriety, like for me, like I was attracting people who treated me like my dad did, or like treated me like it just in not a great way. And to like have another, you know, like emotional bottom with that was really painful. But, you know, I read like the books that Lana gave me, and it was just amazing to like have that connection to APN, and also know that like there's just so much more for me to like unpack. And I was really, really grateful that like I had those books and that like I had that resource. Yeah, but so in general, like social media, feels amazing to be off of it. And yeah, I mean, it's so nice to just like not know what people are doing. And I mean, I'm still on YouTube Shorts, which is kind of like TikTok, but it's not as bad. And I don't spend like nearly as much time on my phone. My phone's actually in black and white now because one of my like SLAW fellows like did that. And it's just really nice to like be more present. Because yeah, I mean, I can so easily just fall down like rabbit holes so quickly with my phone.
Do you mind quickly, I mean, SLAW, right? SLAA. Yeah. Can you tell, what does that stand for our audience?
Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous. I have had issues with like relationships since I was a kid.
And can you talk about, which I think you might have, but more how that's about relationships and intimacy, and not people think, oh, sex, you know, like.
Yeah. So it's not just like about sex. Like I identify more as like a love addict, where the way that I came into 12-step was through ACA, which I learned here.
Adult Children of Alcoholics?
Yes. Yeah. So they had like some, like a group about ACA, and I really identified with that. So that's what I came into 12-step on. And I wasn't really finding the solution that I needed. So I came to AA. And so, but basically to say that like ACA and like SLAW are really focused on like intimacy and like relationships and like codependency and like how you show up with that. And, you know, a lot of it's based in trauma, and, you know, because you attract what you know, and you're attracted to what you know. So I've always been really attracted to like like abusive people, and like people who like don't respect my boundaries and all of that. And that's kind of been like my next chapter in recovery, to kind of start working through that and seeing where I still have issues and what I need to work on. And yeah, I mean, I've just been really grateful to like have another community with that. And also for Lana for pointing it out so early on. Like I didn't listen to her like early on, but to have that little nugget in the back of my brain, where I'm like, oh, like this is something I can work on, was really nice.
So you talked a lot about 12-step fellowship in different ways, and a part of one aspect of that is service and being helpful to other people.
Yeah.
You coming on this episode with us, like how does that wrap into your 12-step fellowship world and how you could be helpful?
Yeah, so when I first heard about the opportunity, I was just excited to go to Colorado. I'm from Colorado, and I used to go out here like every like summer and winter, but my grandma passed away, so this is the first year that like I haven't been able to. So it was such a gift to be able to come out here and like do that for myself, but then also for service. Like, yeah, it's definitely one of the top like priorities in my life now, which is crazy to think about. And to just like share my story and help people, and like even if there's only one person that like I help or that like identifies with my stuff, like that is in itself huge. Yeah. And I know for me, like I get so much out of like hearing other people's stories, and especially like at meetings. So yeah, to kind of just be able to come back to a place that like gave me so much and like helped me so much and was fundamental to like my recovery, has been like amazing. And yeah, I'm just really grateful to be here.
There's a term that we like to say here, but like all of our stories, people, were uniquely useful, right? If I tell a story, one person might hear it, where Dan will tell a story, it might be similar, but there's a different person. And same thing with, Lily, any of our podcast guests, that were useful to people in so many different places, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I was really looking forward to kind of just like talking about like all the tools that like this place gave me, where, like 12-step has given me so many tools, but so has this place, like to like emotional regulation and like how to communicate with people, and to just like be more aware of what I'm feeling and how to go through hard things. Like I had a really hard 2022 and like lost some relationships with people I really cared about, and my grandma passed away, and like just all these different things. To be able to move through that and still be here has been amazing. And I think for me, I also love to like have things to look forward to, and this was one of the things that like I was really looking forward to.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I think it's incredible, and I guess it's like a perfect ending because you continue to work on yourself. So I give you all the credit in the world.
There's no finish line.
Yep.
Yeah, and I love that you get that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you for coming out to Colorado. Thank you for making this a priority.
I love Colorado, so.
Really, really appreciate you sharing. And I personally have learned a lot, so thank you.
Yeah.
For our listeners and viewers out there, if you'd like to see more of these types of episodes, please visit us at apn.com/podcast. You can find all the episodes from this season and previous seasons as well. If you have any questions or suggestions, or if you're an alumni and you'd like to come on the podcast, please reach out to us at pod@apn.com. That is pod@apn.com. And please follow us on all of our socials, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, whatever we do. And please like and subscribe on this video. Thank you again for listening.